Nietzsche's paradise. Perspectivism. Christian. For by his strength shall no man prevail. 1 Samuel 2:9. A man must be broken so that what is fixed and firm and final may be fully itself. Justified and very easily can I hear him, the prophet of this world, willing to laugh and claim his yes over this proposition and his approval. Nietzsche was a man who believed nothing at all about comfort and held men as champions, who not only are visionaries, but have the vigor suited to accomplish said vision, with an esteem which was their due in this world, congratulating them. Whether anyone realizes it or not, the philosopher knew this is where the crux must be, since no two share any meaningfully consistent vision with one another across the board when left to themselves, and neither do they share the same marvelously divine ambition, the only divinity he heralded, to make their claim grounded in reality. We are not equal. From a purely physicalist worldview, we all know this. The philosopher would have told us straightly that there are pretensions to the contrary in idealism, which he would have seen in Christianity, but not only there, but in any similar ethic. A very consistent man. Naturalistic realism is the modern West. As we congratulate ourselves in denying something simple, we are not all created equal. If this be so, a further consequence is immediately noticeable, that there are immediate collisions catastrophic enough for those who are the lesser and the weaker of humanity to lose their claim and vision, and even their lesser ambition to those whom they have collided into and who have won. This is to be applauded by those who love strength and the willingness to exercise and therefore excise all and anyone who is to compete. Thus, the idiom that the strong live and the weak die is a tautology implicit when there are weaknesses all throughout the parts of nature. These who are consumed by nature, what is an equal truism? Not far removed from the former. The fittest of narratives is to win in the collisions. All of life is a collision. Death, destruction, on a level the philosopher was not shy in his understanding of and in his praise of those who understand the game and wish to win it. By all means. And the deed of death and outflow suited to the strong aims. Here is encoded a true realism, in which you can estimate the strength or decadence of an entire culture like Rome. Rome was Nietzsche's favorite. If we can and are allowed to use such a term to apply to the man, since he easily turned on anything as readily as praise. Rome is the very archetype of power, steel, and civil governance, and unity at the point of the sword held by men of valor after years of blood training. These are they who make society an aesthetic, an art. Even the purchase of citizenship was immediate rise in esteem and legal protection and rights afforded only to those who are citizens. So much so, soldiers bled for years for such an honor. Now let us run the thought experiment. Was Nietzsche right? Yes. Insofar as we are speaking only on the terms of inequality inevitably distributed amid the many. Perspectivism is our entire life in the flesh, with no overarching value, only points of small values distinguished from each other in lives. Yes, he was right, and as nearly consistent as a man has ever been philosophically concerning such issues of ethics, which is the arena we find ourselves, or the erosion of ethics, where this thought process tends to aim. But let us find and frustrate a contradiction in the thought against the old philosopher. Though he would not particularly care, since there is no real thing like consistency, only perspectives. Note, I know the man well. Even truth is presumed to be a good in the West, and Nietzsche defines it as another presumption. And the reason which derives from said truth is a power play, but we continue. Taking, for example, Rome. There was always a main perspective that ruled over the consciences of the society. Indifferent though a society is to any particular petty perspective, it is not indifferent and independent of the perspective. The fittest narrative, as the principle each part bounded to, make the ethos entire. Every society has some governing ethic that holds the entire thing glued. And in the modern day, it is strange, some and so many have forgotten this. In the modern day, it is strange to think that people with radically different ethics can actually honor the same space. Another thought experiment will be revealing. There are ethical systems which have no problem with lies, at least to the good, an increase of those within this ethical umbrella. And therefore, they are justified to lying to outsiders to increase their cause. There are other ethical styles, which in no conceivable situation is such an act warranted. Question: in the long run, can these two morally contrary statements guide affairs in common life exist peacefully with one another? The bright reader will be quick to realize at some level uniformity is necessary, or our community lives are fragmentary. And even Nietzsche's favorite assumed and applied the same requirement, since the Romans, a strict law and order people. There are those who must be broken, to come back and allude to the first sentence of this letter, my Christian sibling. The question is it imposed without by the world or within from our own choices? A series of choices which inevitably conclude in damage against a disagreeable public. Christ once lived in that public. So now we live in the same. People pretend as though all having blatantly cosmically different points of view will rest easy and make a future bliss of possibilities together. One of Nietzsche's progeny used the phrase wishful thinking, applying it to his Christian opponents. It is wishful thinking. What I share with the atheists like Nietzsche is that I understand quite astutely how stately attractive power is in the mind of almost everyone, even the most blissful and holiest of them. Those who reject all realms of the will to power are over men of a type and sort most of mankind is not, even of the special people of the Lord. These types who are sacred want power only as much and as far as to control and use to ignite good in hell's paradise, where people think they'll be good left alone. Problem: no one is left to themselves and everyone is affected by what surrounds. Some to a greater, some to a lesser degree. Our society is constantly pushing Christian walls and against Christian institution and even Christian high ethics that at one time threatened the power of nations and their practices. Yes, the old philosopher was right about perspectives and also their inevitable collisions. But that's only the former, not the latter. The latter, uniformity of values, necessary wants, which strategically fit within that stratum or atmosphere or ethos of a shared worldview, which is the latter. Everyone wants to battle it out by discourse, legislation, or academic invasion, and therefore turning the minds of the impressionable by slogans people passionately love to use. The Christian nationalist mission is the same as the Christian historically. As far as can be done to subdue a feature of the world to obey the Christ God, Jesus of Nazareth, ourselves, and add day by day others. People tend to think Christianity is weak. This is logical fallacy of composition. They're right in one respect, wrong in the second. The parts are quite weak. But what makes us one is a very strong vision, like never before seen on the earth and never before argued. A very simple fallacy of composition, because without any bit of strength, as the narrative says, we have and are of one, and comparison to is over all other narratives. So strength yields to us. Our story, whether or not the truth, its use and output never before has been shown to be weak. Ask those of us who populate the religious demographic unit in the world, how did we arrive here? We will point to others, of our fathers and mothers who ventured life and blood for us to gospel us and weren't afraid of the sting. I quote the man whose word no Christian can deny is perfect for the foundation of a Christian nation. Whatever is done out of love always takes place beyond good and evil. Nietzsche.